Let's cap off the Sam Raimi trilogy and drive that funky soul. Spider-Man 3 was released in 2007. I was 8 years old and everybody was hyped for this movie. The moment we saw Peter Parker in a black suited Spider-Man suit, we were like, yes. Venom is the most iconic villain. They teased him in the trailers, which was stupid on their part because Sony loves to spoil everything. But regardless, we were all hyped. And we were kind of curious because, they showed us Sandman. Harry Osborn needed to wrap up his story, and we didn't really know if this was truly the end of the trilogy or they were going to continue right after. But one thing's for sure, you can tell that this was not Sam Raimi's vision. There's some stuff that was very clear that it was all corporate based, but Sam Raimi tried his best into giving us the best that he could with what he was given and what he was told to. How you can see Sam Raimi in interviews saying that he hates this movie, and the person interviewing him going like, "Oh no, it was good, it was alright. No, it was a piece of shit." I for once think that Spider-Man 3 was entertaining, and yes, it has a lot of problems. But for the most part, I can't really hate it. I don't know what is it about it. I can watch it and entertain myself. There's some very cool things that happen in the movie, but I can admit that this is not as good as the original Tobey Maguire movie, and of course its sequel, which was one of the greatest superhero movies of all time. This, however, didn't do a good job at wrapping up the trilogy. If you actually go back and watch, I recommend you to check out What Culture when it was good. They actually did how they should have written Spider-Man or something like that. Spider-Man 3 to be exact. And in that writing, they actually said Venom should have been James Franco's character, Harry Osborn. And I thought to myself, yeah, that's the one that makes the most sense, and no one has ever tried it until now. Most recently, in the video games, Harry Osborn does become Venom. We'll get to that when we get to it. The movie kicks off with a really sick Danny Elfman score in the beginning, during the opening credits, basically showing you a new style of the music now that we know that Spider-Man will be going rogue in this movie. The switch around it's pretty awesome. I love it. It's my favorite score, honestly, of the entire trilogy. The movie starts off with people already loving Spider-Man and who he is. And we even have an awesome Stan Lee cameo, one of the best Stan Lee cameos. Personally, my favorite, actually. Already, Harry and Peter don't talk to each other, given that we all know what we know in the second movie. Mary Jane is at this Broadway play, which is whatever. A lot happened in one night. Let's talk about it. So we have Mary Jane's show. Peter and MJ are having a date. The symbiote arrives to Earth. Peter visits Aunt May, letting her know that he plans on asking Mary Jane to marry him. Peter and Harry have a fight. Flip Marko escapes from prison. He gets chased into a lab, and eventually he gets the Sandman powers because of it. So a lot happened in one night. So their way of writing off Harry Osborn was him forgetting his memory after getting knocked down on a fight he had with Peter. That is their way of writing him off. That was pretty lame. Harry should have been the core villain from the start, whether you want to make him Venom, whether you want to make him the new Goblin. Harry Osborn needed to be the main villain. That's, I think, the first red flag in this movie. One other big red flag that no one talks about a lot and people maybe even forgot about it. But Gwen Stacy is horrible in this movie. Now, around this time, Gwen Stacy was getting popular reactions in the comics. I don't know how, but she was getting a popular reaction. And in the process, they shoehorned her in here because the rumor was they were supposed to make Spider Man 4, but Kristen Dunst was ready to finish off the series. She was done after 3, and we weren't supposed to get her back. Kristen Dunst was going to move on to something else, and Gwen Stacy was going to be the replacement. What is it with Bryce Dallas Howard always being the worst part of the franchise? She was horrible here. She was horrible in the Jurassic World movies. Just stop. Just stick to low budget streams. Thank God she didn't ruin Rocket Man, one of the greatest movies of all time. The big thing that pissed me off was the kiss. Now, this scene would have worked better if Peter Parker was already attached to the symbiote and he was acting like a cocky, arrogant person. But he wasn't. He was just himself, and I'm just like, dude, weren't you just thinking about proposing to MJ? Yeah, this part was really stupid, and when he has that conflict with Mary Jane at the dinner scene, I would have been like, yeah, I'm on Mary Jane's side. It's like, why would you do that? That was your kiss. It led to a very corny scene. The best part about that entire scene was Bruce Campbell, a guy who I haven't even talked about in these movies, but he was very entertaining. The rumor was he was supposed to be Mysterio in the eventual Spider-Man 4 that never happened, which would have been awesome. So in between the dinner fight and that stupid kiss, we do have Sandman coming to life. Flint Marko didn't die in that accident. Instead, he has this really cool mini movie in the process of this, which was a really beautifully shot. It felt like a old Pixar short or something like that. It was really cool. Eventually, it does lead to a fight between Sandman and Spider-Man, where Spider-Man is trying to stop him. He finds out he has sand powers. Even he was like, where did you find these people? And the one thing I didn't like about Flint Marko is that they shoehorn in the fact that he was the actual killer of Uncle Ben. The guy that Peter killed in the first movie was not it. It was kind of like very shoehorned in, and that never happens in the comics. Why would you do that? It was so ridiculous. They didn't need to do that. It does lead to like him eventually getting his payback because remember, the symbiote comes in and takes over Peter Parker's body. His new Spider-Man suit is a lot stronger. He's a lot rougher. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, in the process, Eddie Brock is trying to take Peter Parker's position by being the new photographer of the Daily Bugle. And he's even taking pictures of Spider-Man in the black suit. Spider-Man breaks Eddie Brock's camera and goes, "See ya, chump." It was awesome. I love that scene. It was very funny. Only for Eddie Brock to have another camera ready to go. That was actually kind of entertaining. I like that. But the fight between Spider-Man and Sandman was awesome. You can clearly tell that this is a more ruthless Spider-Man. We even are set to believe that he killed the Sandman. This was another way to write him off because way too many characters, remember. And like I said, it was a cool fight scene, but then we do see the more ruthless side of Peter Parker. You'll get your rent after you fix this damn door. Also, don't forget, Harry Osborn and Mary Jane are in this movie, so we need to have them on the movie. And then they have like a weird dinner date where they make out. Harry gets his memory back, and he plants a seed on Mary Jane and Peter Parker breaking up. We have that awkward scene where Harry and Peter are having that one scene at the restaurant. A bus passes by and then Harry disappears, which was so stupid. I mean, it's funny now, going back to it. But now that Peter is pissed, he is kind of back to his more ruthless side. He wears the black suit again, goes to Harry's house, they fight for a while, burns his face, and, there's that. Eventually, Eddie Brock gets pictures of Spider-Man being a criminal, only to find out that those pictures were fake. Side note, J. Jonah Jameson was really funny in the beginning, where he has to take his medicine, and Elizabeth Banks has to press this button, which is like super strong, like it was I love that scene. J. Jonah Jameson, J.K. Simmons was just chef's kiss in this series. But eventually we find out that the pictures are fake, and then we lead into the corniest scene in Spider-Man history, which has become a phenomenon now, and that is, of course, the Peter Parker dance in the street, Drive That Funky Soul. It is one of the corniest scenes of all time, but it does work because it's Peter Parker, a nerd, trying to act cool, and he doesn't know what cool is. So I do like that scene. Believe it or not, it's actually really funny. It's kind of like a parody to the Raindrops Keep Falling in My Head from the second film, and now it's added into this. This does lead to a date with Gwen and Peter at MJ's restaurant, which leads to a terrible dance number. And then eventually it leads to a big fight. Peter realizing now that he is just more sinner, and now he's like realizing, like, yeah, this isn't me. He goes to rip off his Spider-Man suit at this church. He uses the bell to attack the symbiote because its biggest effect is fire and noise. But like I said, he rips off the suit, he dumps it out, and sure enough, Eddie Brock is there, and he becomes Venom in this movie. Yeah, that's right. Topher Grace goes from Eric Foreman to Venom. Keep that in mind. This does lead to a big battle where Venom and Sandman team up. By the way, how the hell does Eddie Brock know Flint Marco's backstory of him needing money to help his family? Spider-Man, behind the American flag, tries to take on both Venom and Sandman on his own after asking Harry for help, and it leads to one of the worst scenes ever, where it's the butler telling Harry Osborn after all these years, saying, oh, when I cleaned the blades off your father's board, it was his blood. He killed himself, and you could have said this years ago, and almost none of this would have happened. So it's just, again, more stupid writing in this movie, and it just doesn't work. But this does lead to the tag team between Harry and Peter versus Sandman and Venom. We're back to the crappy new Goblin suit. They save MJ, and they take down the Sandman. Funny scene with J. Jonah Jameson trying to take pictures of the whole action. He doesn't know where Peter is. He buys a camera from this little girl, and turns out that you can't even take pictures, and then he has to pay even more for the picture. It was really funny. Again, J. Jonah Jameson, never change. So once Sandman is taken down, we have the battle with Venom, and it leads to Harry Osborn's death after dying the exact same way his father did, with his own board. But once we realize that sound is what stops the symbiote, Peter takes advantage, uses sound to remove Eddie Brock from the symbiote. He throws a bomb at it to make it explode, only for Eddie Brock to jump in. And then Eddie Brock is dead. Good, because he sucked in this movie. We wrap off the story with Sandman talking to Peter, explaining his actions, how he accidentally shot Uncle Ben, which is, again, more horrible writing. Peter finally forgives him and lets go. We have Harry Osborn's funeral. We go back to the restaurant of where MJ works. Peter and MJ dance, and then the movie's over. It ended in a downer, and we all thought, okay, well, let's see how they cap off Spider-Man 4. There was rumors, and they were ready to go, and then they just chose to reboot the franchise. Now, isn't it funny that the Sam Raimi movies came out the exact same time the Shrek movies came out, and they all have the same pattern? First of all, they came out in the same year, and each one has its own pattern. The first one succeed in giving you a good story arc of all the characters. The second one over succeeded and did much better than the first one. People were so hyped for the third one, and it just tanked down, and it was a huge disappointment. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I do enjoy from this movie. The action was great. Some of the writing was just flat out terrible. Some keynotes kind of almost ruined the first two movies. I would say that this movie, it is a hard movie to rate, but I'll have to give it a C minus. It is not really close to a D because it is not unbearable. You can still sit through it and watch it and have some enjoyment, but it is not that good of a movie, if I'm being honest. But if Sam Raimi had his vision, this would have been one of the greatest superhero trilogies of all time. Has there ever been that definitive superhero trilogy? I know people say The Dark Knight, but some people complain about The Dark Knight Rises. I'm not one of those people. Maybe Guardians. Yeah, there's not that many good superhero trilogies, if I'm being honest. Captain America. There we go. There's one. Anyways, I am ready to move on from Spider-Man 3, and we're going to move on to the next project that I'll be talking about, and that is a comic book. I'm excited to talk about this one because it is one of the more infamous comics of all time, Kraven's Last Hunt. We'll see you tomorrow, and yeah, take care, everybody.